The UK has authorized the use of the AstraZeneca and Oxford University vaccine, marking the first national approval for this immunization. That could be what's injected. No pun was intended, but it's pretty good. The optimism back into these futures. Joining us now is Deenan Pillay, virologist at University College London. Deenan, let me ask your take on how this rollout is going. I know we've only just begun, but we've already got millions of people immunized around the world. Is it going to happen quickly and efficiently?
Well, good morning to you. It does need to happen very quickly, efficiently. And here in the UK, we're at the peak of all time of numbers of cases and hospitalizations. The advantage of the AstraZeneca vaccine is, as widely known, that it doesn't need the cold chain. It doesn't need these deep, heavy freezers, and it doesn't need, therefore, this limited time which the current Pfizer vaccine requires between defrosting and being given to individuals. So currently, for instance, the Pfizer vaccine, it's very difficult to develop the infrastructure to deliver it to people who are, for instance, elderly and housebound. You have to deliver it within vaccine centres, whereas the AstraZeneca vaccine, because it's more stable at fridge temperatures, it can enable a much wider immunization. So that's the real strength of this announcement this morning.
You know, in reading about the delays in the U.S. rollout, I see that the cooling is one of the issues that a lot of the states are having problems with. And if, you know, even in the United States of America, they have issues with these technological snafus, or these technological, I should say, requirements. Is that going to make it much harder for everyone else as well?
Well, it's interesting to observe how things are moving with the FDA in the States. And from afar, and I'm not involved in that process, there's been a fair bit of negative discussion about this AstraZeneca vaccine, mainly because of complexities in the trials leading up to the approval. I think the data were more messy. There had to be a linking together of data from different trials compared to the Pfizer trial, which was done from a sort of scientific point of view. From a scientific point of view, was a much cleaner vaccine. But there's no doubt that the Pfizer vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, which has also been approved in the US, a little bit to lesser extent, still needs a cold chain, whereas the AstraZeneca, the big advantage here, both within the States, Europe, but also the rest of the world, I think allows for a much wider distribution. The problem still is, I think, the challenge now is how to get a large number of people immunized in a very short time. Literally, that is needed if we're to sort of make a significant dent in the mortality and the death figures that we're seeing. So I think it's that ramping up very quickly rather than allowing it to go for a whole year, as I know Biden has been talking about. That ramping up is going to be a real challenge and will depend on local infrastructure and the health services available.
I wonder, you know, the first case of this new strain out of the UK has been discovered in the US, I believe in Colorado. Are you concerned that this virus mutates in a way that makes these vaccines, that reduces their efficacy?
That's a really good question. And at this moment in time, it does not look like that is the case. However, all viruses vary and mutate. It was previously thought at the beginning of the pandemic that this virus would not mutate as much as we've now seen it doing. And, of course, those mutations that are happening are indeed happening in that bit of the virus which is targeted by these vaccines. So it is a concern. And I think that's why it's not just a question of giving the vaccine. The vaccine rollout needs to be associated with a significant attempt to ramp up social distancing, what in the UK we call tiers and lockdowns, in order to significantly reduce transmission while we get the vaccine out. Because more transmission of this virus is the way in which further mutations develop. And the worry is, as you say, that on the back of our existing mutant strains and mutant variants, that a variant will develop which is less effectively prevented by this vaccine. So it is a bit of a race on. It also requires, of course, ongoing surveillance of the genetics of this virus, so that, for instance, we may need to get into a stage of a second generation of vaccines if indeed this first variant becomes resistant.